Hello and welcome to another episode of Garment Talks, brought to you by me, Consult Apparel Production Planning and Management Services. My name is Morenikeji Edward Etu, and I'm your host. This is a space where we bring voices from across the fashion and garment industry to share their insights, experiences, and strategies to help develop the industry. So whether you are a fashion business owner or a fashion enthusiast or a technical expert, this is the right space for you. On this episode today, I have with me Mrs. Boye Asenuga, the founder of ChicNiCity. She wears many hats, so I'm just going to allow her to introduce herself and tell us what she does within the fashion industry. Hi, ma'am. Good morning. You're welcome.
Hello, Morenikeji.
Very well.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
My name is Boye Asenuga, and as Morenike mentioned, I own a brand called ChicNiCity, based in the US, but we have a presence in Nigeria too. Also, for the past over 20 years, I've been working as an apparel developer and production consultant in the fashion industry globally.
Wow. That's huge. I don't want us to take too much time. I know there's a lot of story, behind the 20 years of being in the industry, but I don't want us to, talk so much about it. But I just want us to focus on ChicNiCity for now.
Sure.
Can you please share how you got to that point of creating a brand? What led to the creation of ChicNiCity?
Very interesting question. So, I grew up in Nigeria, went to University of Lagos, studied law, went to law school. But while I was in Unilag, I started dabbling into fashion. And by the time I was finished in law school, I decided that was the path, I wanted to, go into. And, luckily my parents were very supportive and they gave me a space. So about 25 years ago, I started, an outfit. We used to customize pieces. Okay. And the more, I had customers, the more I wanted that knowledge for fashion. Fortunately for me, although some of my customers back then didn't think so, I met my husband and he lived in the US. Okay. I got married, moved to the US, and immediately I'm Ekiti, and we love knowledge. Yeah. So I knew I was going back to school. Mm-hmm. So I went back to school to study fashion design at a school called School of Fashion Design in Boston. And that was like the creative aspect of fashion. Okay. So I got a certificate. But then a few years later, I wanted that knowledge, the technical knowledge, because they're two different things.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted that knowledge of, okay, how come when you go into a store, everything is consistent, the finishing, the sizing. So I went back to a school called FIT New York. It's a renowned, school. Yes. Globally. And I went back to study product development and production. And oh my goodness, I fell in love. So what product development entails is, tech packs and, process to take people into mass production. Okay. So, and that was it. And I fell in love and I fell deeply in love with,
That's interesting.
Fashion.
That's interesting. Two things jumped at me while you were speaking. The first part, definitely on a lighter note, when you said your clients didn't think it was a fortunate because you had to leave, of course. Yes. Yeah. So I can imagine that you were really satisfying them back then. Yes. If I may ask, what kind of training did you have, with regards to fashion that made you start at that point? Because you didn't mention anything around that.
Morenike. So, by the way, I will come back to ChicNiCity. But I didn't have any knowledge.
Wow.
And I remember that when I started, I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know how to get to, that finish line. But because I was really interested in fashion, I started reading books. Okay. And then I had a friend who had studied fashion in America, okay, who came back and I said, please, can you teach me how to make patterns? So I remember she would come to my store every week and teach me how to make patterns. So that was how I started on that path. And of course, when I went to America, I knew I had to go back to school. But that being said, let me answer your question. So ChicNiCity came by because it was a love letter to myself. So after almost 20 years of living in the US, I wanted something that represented myself as a Nigerian living in Boston. Yeah. So it was a blending of my two worlds, because prior to that, people will send me pieces, something made in Nigeria to wear, but I couldn't wear it because if you know Massachusetts, very conservative, society. Okay. So wearing something brightly colored, like a boo-boo, no, people just say, hi, nice costume. I didn't want that. Wow. I wanted something I could wear every day to go and pick up my kids, go into a meeting, go for brunch. So I wanted that, print, the West African print, but in silhouettes that were modern, from my very dynamic lifestyle. Wow. So if I had to make like a kaftan, we will make it midi. Because everybody is very mobile and dynamic. I'm not going to wear like an agbada sweeping the floor to do my groceries. So that was why ChicNiCity started. And also, I wanted the very conservative people in Massachusetts to look at it, say, interesting print, but I can wear this dress. I want them to say, nice dress. Yeah. There's something different about this print.
Yeah.
And I knew I was onto something when I went to my bank wearing one of my dresses, and my banking officer was like, ooh, I love this dress. Where can I get it? So I knew I was onto something. Wow. So again, ChicNiCity, a love letter, to my being Nigerian, living in Boston. And blending my cultures. Yeah.
That's a very, very great story. That's a very great story. So I want to believe that at the point when you made this decision, so there were a lot of things that helped that decision-making process, which would definitely include your trainings, as you mentioned at your school, the first experience you had with fashion, and then the FIT college that you went to. So this brings me to this next question. How has your experience in product development, like the trainings and all that, how has it shaped your approach to building ChicNiCity?
Moreni, it has shaped it greatly in the sense that before I started ChicNiCity, I had been a product developer for close to 10 years. And I had made mistakes on other people's, dime. And I tell people, starting in the industry, that's the best way to start. Yes. So I had that down. So I had that part of product down to a T. But guess what? As a brand, I lacked when it came to, my marketing. So I thought, so far you have a good product, people will buy. But if you have a good product, but nobody knows about it, how are they going to buy? Yeah. So I had the product down. That was very easy for me. Did I make a few mistakes? Yeah, there's nothing like when you start your business. But product-wise, I had it down. And it was just me, like I said, making mistakes on other people's dime. So I learned the process. I built, great relationships with people, my factories, and that came in very handy for me. When I was ready to start, people were ready to help.
Wow, that's such a good one too. So I think from what you just shared now, one of the things you'd probably be telling younger people or people who are interested in building brands would be to, apart from the technical expertise, apart from the creative flair, you should know a bit, not even a bit. Marketing should be a strong point for you also. Yes. And it's interesting that even when it comes to garment production, when I'm offering my services to people from the angle of garment production, I also reiterate to them that it's a business, so it has to be profitable. Yes. So it means that all your operations, you need to look at it holistically and say, okay, what areas are we lacking or lagging? And it's interesting that even when it comes to garment production, if you plan it properly, the time, the cost and everything would be so, everything will work out so well that it would be a profitable venture at the end of the day. Because many people actually spend so much time on production. Now, this is not to go against what slow fashion is. That means that you should take, but basically it's the fact that sometimes you're even your production, you are running at a higher production cost because there's either idle time with your workers,
Yes.
the machines are laying fallow, a whole lot of
Yes.
things could,
Yes.
contribute to that.
Yes.
So holistically, it's important that business owners, fashion business owners, understand that they need to build capacity
Yes.
in all the different facets of the, of the business. All right. So moving on
Yes.
to the next question here. It says, I read your profile on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I picked up the HSN, the fact that you were
Yes.
featured on HSN. So I just wanted to talk about that. It's such a huge milestone. Can you just share what the process was like for you, and what it taught you about scaling or visibility?
Okay, so that was a
Mm.
huge milestone
it
for
was.
me, and I have to give a shout out to the Lagos Fashion Week. So, through Lagos Fashion Week, we went for a trade show. I always say, find your process, because process will bring progress.
Mm.
Be ready every time. So I had my process down, went for a trade show. As you can see, I love talking. So I had people in my booth and I was talking, and unknowingly to me, I had a story, which I would always let people know, this is why I started ChicNiCity. And I saw a lady just, watching me. And I had quite a lot of people, and I signaled to her saying, I'm coming, don't leave.
Okay.
So when I finished with the people in my booth, I went up to her and she said, Boy, don't you have a story? And I said, yes, I do. Let me tell you my story. So, and I explained, what ChicNiCity was about, my two cultures of being West African, living in Boston. And she's like, you know what? I'm like a buyer for HSN. And I'm like, what?
Oh, wow.
And she's like, you know what? I'm going to go and bring the VP of, I've forgotten that department, the buying department.
Okay.
And I want her to talk to you. And she came back with a woman, told them my story again. And the woman said, would love to talk to you. So after every day, I email people, and immediately I emailed them, boom, they emailed back. And before we knew it, within 3 months, apparently it's a longer time period for other people.
Wow.
Within 3 months, I had signed the deal, and my background in product development also helped, because when you're dealing with a huge Fortune 500 company, the process is
thorough.
I
can imagine.
So when they asked me for samples, I sent tech packs, and also they already knew. Because a lot of designers are not technical people.
I'm so happy you're highlighting this.
Yeah. They're two different things. Different things. So the process was easy. But again, I had the product down. When you're dealing with a company like that, there's so many things. I remember that process was stressful. Thank God for my husband, who's a very, he's an engineer, so he's very
systematic.
Yeah. I'm a creative person. I'm all over the place. So a few things he would help me, because remember, we do the production. You cannot even ship until they come and inspect.
Oh, wow.
Oh, and guess what? If you fail the inspection, you pay for it. Wow. So I say this again because I remember people said, why didn't you produce in Nigeria? I'm like, I can't. First and foremost, we don't even have people who inspect, and everything is thorough. There's, an AQL standard you have to fall into. That we were able to do because I was already, involved in that. Yeah. But when the product came, the way we had to pack it, it was so on point. You had to use a certain type of box. You couldn't use a box bigger than this. You had to do this. Wow. You had to do that. And so that was the post-production part, which, in my dealing with clients, I do pre-production, post is up to them. Yeah. So I learned that, or how we say in Nigeria, I learned a lot doing that. It was a wonderful process. It put my name out there because HSN reaches 20 million people in the US. That, a middle-class market. So it was wonderful. We sell on TV too.
Wow.
So you're talking to
I think I saw that. Yeah, I think I saw
over
those.
20 million
Yeah,
people. It was a wonderful process. It opened my eyes to, especially the post-production, how you import things into the US. I had learnt about it at FIT, but I now had to put it into practice. Yeah. And it's, another, ball game. Yeah. And also another thing I'd love to mention, costing saved me. Costing is key. Yes. Because HSN because they're going to make thousands, they're going to beat down the price. Oh, yeah. So as a product developer, you know how to change things to meet the cost. And I remember when I went for the orientation, because before you come on air, there's an orientation, and there are other people, because they do a lot. They do furniture, they do cosmetics, they do a lot. So I met other people, and they all kept on saying, I'm not even breaking even. And I made a very good profit. Oh, wow. So costing is key. A lot of people kept on saying, if I can break even, I'll be happy. So I couldn't even say anything. Another thing post-production was, if you do not follow the instructions, there's a chargeback. So if you do not pack well, you'll be charged. If you do not use the proper boxes, you'll be charged. If you do not send it the way but my husband helped me with that, because when he was a student, he had worked with Whole Foods, so he knew that process. Wow. And luckily for me, I did not get charged a dime. Oh my goodness. People, you can get charged as much as $10,000. Oh, yeah. So all those things, again, it was my village that helped me, from, Lagos Fashion Week to my husband and my kids. I put everyone to work. So that was the whole process. Again, it's opened up, doors for me. Oh, yeah. But to wrap it up, I always say, stay ready. Find your process. I
think that's what I was just going to bring this answer.
Process will bring progress.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, stay ready.
Yeah.
You've shared a lot with this particular answer. And I'm like, you've touched on many things. And this particular episode, I'm going to make sure it gets to everybody that needs to hear it, because many I wouldn't even say fashion designers now, I'll say many fashion business owners in Nigeria don't understand this. The pre-production, the production and post-production, and the need to be aware. They need to be enlightened. Yes. They need to know. One of the things that you highlighted and said helped you, the costing, is something I want us to go. I know it's not part of the things I shared.
Please, I'll be happy to talk about it.
I just want you to talk a bit on costing. What are the things tips that you can give people on how to go about costing their products properly and everything that goes into it, just to be ready for a market like this?
Okay. You have to be. So costing has a lot, but I'm going to, a high level information, because I teach a class on costing. So there's several things. Cost of the product, very important, which means every component to your garment, you're costing it. If you meet a buyer, they're going to ask you a few questions regarding costing that if you can't answer, they're going to kind of walk away. When you cost your garment, right, how do you mark up? There are two different, things you have to think about. There's your retail markup if you're doing a business to customer, right? Which you
B2C
tend to have a wider profit margin. But when you're dealing with a wholesaler, and I deal with wholesalers, apart from HSN and another, big departmental store called Bonton we deal with, I have a lot of boutiques.
Okay.
That we
stock your products.
I stock my products. Yeah. And in America, they buy off you. Okay. So if they're buying off you, you have to give them, a reasonable discount that matches what you're selling your product on your website. So if they're buying from you, they can sell at 300 and you're selling at 200. It has to kind of, match. So they're expecting, a good discount from you. So know your cost of goods. And what I tell my students is cost of goods times 3.1. That's the easy way.
Okay.
First way to mark up. If you want to get very technical, we're talking about spreadsheets, okay? But as a small business owner, when I make my products for ChicNiCity, the website where we're not supplying wholesalers, that's what I do. Cost of goods times 3.1. How much you're making your garment, the shipping, the duties. You have to think about all of that. I don't know about Nigeria. In America, yeah, you have to pay your duty. Yes. So all of that times 3.1.
Why 3.1? If I'm
so
asked?
it's a figure we use in the industry. Okay. So when I went to FIT, that was when I learned that. Okay. So, but for me also, now you bring the value your brand name has. Because sometimes after doing that, I can add more.
Perceived value.
Perceived value.
Yeah.
You got that keyword perfectly. Perceived value. Yeah. And last thing I will say is start high. One thing I've realized, and not only in Nigeria, even because I work with students a lot when I teach, you have to cost high. Because it's easy to start high and then come down, still here, still there. Believe me, there are 10% of the people that will buy it at that high price. So make use of that, set of people. And then you have a sale, see how many people buy, and then you begin to see what people will pay for that garment, know. So sometimes, let's say I start at $100 when the product comes in. Yeah, that 10% they buy. I do a sale, I make it $89.90, essentially $90. I see how many people buy. If I see that people are able to buy, we're going to keep it at that
price,
or take it back but bring it down. But always start high, because if you start low, you can't go anywhere else.
It'll be harder to. And then
but when you start high, you can do your sale and then find that sweet spot that people are buying without thinking twice.
Wow.
So that in costing wise, those are the tips I will give.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. It feels as though we need to have like a masterclass session with you.
I will be back. So I would love to come. Like I said, it's my year of giving back.
Wow. This I'm totally blown, because these are the key areas that people struggle in, like when it comes to costing, product development, getting the feet, and just being ready basically for opportunities that may come. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next question.
Sure.
As a professional development instructor at the School of Fashion Design, which is a huge one, what key skills do you think every new designer or entrepreneur should prioritize mastering today? It feels as though you've answered some of these questions, like we've spoken about costing and all that, but what are the other things that you think people should learn?
So if you're looking to be an apparel developer, or if you're already in that space?
So I think this speaks to people who want to be like a new designer or an entrepreneur, like starting from afresh.
So for me, knowledge is key. I'm an Ekiti girl, so we're very into knowledge, because once you have the knowledge, that foundation is built, especially if you want to be profitable. I came into ChicNiCity. I wanted to make money. Fashion isn't glamorous. It's hard work. So knowledge is key. And the good thing now is there's so many ways to learn for free. Because when I started in the industry, CAD wasn't big. We're still making patterns by hand. So by the time, the digital space started, I went back and it was on YouTube. I taught myself how to make patterns on Adobe Illustrator.
Oh, wow, that's good.
And I love it. In fact, it's like the way I relax, because I love pattern making. So for me to do it on Adobe, which saves me time, energy, and effort. Yeah, so knowledge is key. Go onto YouTube. AI helps. So you can start with that. You don't need to go to school for starters to start, gaining knowledge. So knowledge is key. Find your process. Process will bring progress, not perfection. I've been in this industry for over 25 years. I make mistakes. Yeah. But your process will bring a process. Your process will bring, progress, progress. And again, the human factor, be kind. Be respectful. Do not burn bridges.
Yeah.
People ask me, my students are always like, so how did your contacts, in Asia? I was kind. I was human. I was gracious. I make mistakes. They make mistakes. And I'm gracious. I'm a firm person, but I'm gracious because I'm human. And I also think that cultural Nigerian thing about me, people in Asia gravitate towards me because I'm warm. I want to know about your family. So be kind. Don't burn bridges because you do not know who's going to help. Yeah. I have like 20 people I can call on to help me, with things. So I always say that human part of it is very important. If you're smart, you have the knowledge, but you're not good to people and you burn bridges, no one will be there for you. So I will definitely add that too.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We have like 2-3 more questions to go. What are some of the common mistakes that you see emerging brands make in apparel development, and how can they avoid them?
You actually mentioned, that part of it's very holistic. Especially, I still consider myself a small business owner. So it's holistic, but I will take you back a bit. Start small. I advise my students, because also the age of Instagram, people feel like, I have to start big. I have to, do this, do that. I started very small. I will confess, and I'm not ashamed, because fashion seems glamorous, but it's not, if you're not careful, you will not be profitable. For a long time, I took my pictures myself. I will take, have models come. I will take the pictures myself.
Yourself, yeah.
I still, I did a lot myself until I was profitable enough to hire people. Yeah. But guess what? When I do it myself, I make it professional. People think I have like a whole army of, team behind me. I do a lot, and it's hard work. Start small and build on it. If you start big, you spend all the money on, a lot of things, and your product isn't good, people will buy it and move on. Start small, build on things. If you start with 2 pieces, but you perfect it, start like that. So that's number 1. Holistic. I will confess and tell you that, like, when I started, I thought, when I have my product right, people will buy. This year, marketing is key for me. Just getting the name out there. Again, if people don't know you, how are they going to know to buy your products? And, we're lucky in this age that, you have free marketing, Instagram, although they're making it more difficult nowadays for businesses, but there's still, I've had people from all over the world reach out to us from Instagram. And again, consistency, that process. Even if people are not liking your post, keep on posting. Keep on posting. Yeah. So those are the things. And again, I'm going to repeat, fashion, there's nothing glamorous about it. It's hard work, difficult to be profitable if you get carried away. And like we know, 90% of fashion businesses within 3 years quit. Yeah. Not only in Nigeria, all over the world. It's a very tough industry. Start small, be consistent, and be what word can I use? Know what your vision is, and don't get carried away by social media or what you think other people are doing. You don't know what they're doing behind doors. You do what you have to do behind doors and make it work.
Thank you so much. So something came to my heart when you were speaking. If, let's say, a fashion business owner does not have access to funds.
Yes.
In order of priority, which would you say they should prioritize? You spoke about getting your the quality of your products right. You spoke about marketing. I can't remember the third thing now. But basically, in what order of priority would you say? So let's say I can't afford marketing,
Yes.
like on a big scale. Would you say that I should start by getting my product right first, nail that, and then at some point when I'm able to start looking at marketing aggressively, like what would you say to that?
Definitely your product is key, because if you market and then you get your eyeballs on your product, people buy and it's not good. And first impression counts, right?
Yeah, it does.
But one thing I advise students on when I teach my classes, the mistake I made, product, I came on Instagram and okay, here am I. And they're like, who are you? What's your story?
Okay.
So when you're starting out, I tell people your thoughts, start sharing it on Instagram, because you're building people who are connecting to you. I am now trying to, tell my story. I just saw product. So when you're starting, if you draw sketches, put it out. If you're putting together your your mood board, put it out there, and then you start getting feedback, and people start connecting to your, early stages. So it's almost a simultaneous thing. But definitely your product has
because
to
you're
be
not
on
even
point.
having to spend so much on the marketing that you're doing.
That's
it's
subtle.
organic. Yeah.
And people buy into that more because they see when you started, they can relate to you being that person who's just starting off.
Yeah.
Unlike me, I just came out, boom.
Like, where did she come from?
And everything. So now I'm beginning to, market. And I'm a frugal business owner. So even now, I still try and, do things myself.
Yeah.
Because PR marketing isn't cheap.
It's a lot, yeah. I know.
Yeah. Now we're going to hire a professional, but I still do little things on my own. So to wrap up your question, because I talk a lot.
It's all good
so I like to, put a bow on every question. You can do both simultaneously. Take advantage of the fact that you're starting early. Start bringing in your audience. Nothing is too little to post. If you're having a hard day, share. People like things like that. So yeah, simultaneously, but your product is key.
Yeah. I think what I like about what you said is the fact that when you look at it, it's easier for you to spend money on the product. You probably need to spend money there. But when it comes to the marketing, you don't necessarily have to spend money for starters, because you can do it in an organic way, posting, sharing, just being vulnerable and just being real, and then at some point bring on the professional team to handle it. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
There's this question that I just want to ask. When I was thinking of, when I was curating the questions for your session, I thought about the fact that I would want a glimpse into your mind as regards the fashion industry in Nigeria and the things that you would want to see done differently. I know that I've had conversations with people, professionals within the industry, who are just tired of a lot of things in the industry. And one of the things that birthed Garment Talks is to have conversations that would drive impact and change.
Yes.
I know that these conversations, Garment Talks is probably not the first platform where people are having conversations about the garment industry and all that. But I'm just really hopeful that this time around, when people, the game changers, the real players in the industry, when they start to hear these things, they can start making the right decisions and choices, basically. And I know that it has to be collaborative, and I think maybe perhaps that's why it's even taking us so much time. It's taking us longer. But in summary, I just want you to talk about what you see currently, the areas that you'd need us to fix. Where, if you had a magic wand, I think that's how I coined it. What would you like to see in the Nigerian fashion industry?
Fantastic question. First and foremost, I have to tell you, Nigerians are very smart people, very creative, very innovative. With the little we have, we can do a lot. I'm very proud of what, we're doing, our generation, the younger ones especially. Because I tell people, because of the growth of Afrobeats, Nollywood, it's brought that focus on fashion. And Nigeria is seen as literally that giant of Africa.
Yeah.
In America, if you're Nigerian, you're the bee's knees, as in people love what we're bringing to the table. With regards to fashion, all I will say is we need just more knowledge and skill training. We had I was on a panel last October at Lagos Fashion Week, and what I said is that there's so many ways to make money in the fashion industry. I was an apparel developer, production consultant for over 15 years or almost 15 years before I started ChicNiCity. I was learning on other people's, money, and I made a lot of money because, again, a lot of people are fashion designers, but they're not technical people.
Yeah.
Even in the US, there's still a huge void for technical designers, apparel,
product development.
Product developers. It's still a huge. So even the school I went to, that was why they asked me to come back to teach because they were not teaching it.
Wow.
So they were like, Bibi, especially because of that process of HSN, we need you to come and also let people know that you don't need to have a brand to make a lot of money. And the thing about when you're doing other things like that, they're skills. And your skills, you can work with someone in Asia. You can work with someone in Egypt. All you need is your laptop and you can make money. There's so many freelancing, platforms now. Yeah. So what I want is us being able to teach people. There's so many ways to skin a cat. You don't have to have a brand before you can make very good money. By the way, I haven't left, my consulting bit. I still make money from that. And I still learn. So skills. Because Nigeria has the manpower. Everybody sees us as that nation in 20, 30 years with a big economy because we have the youth.
Yeah.
So let's train them where they can earn in dollars. And when you are selling your skill, it's not capital intensive. When I started, I didn't have to have this or that because it was my mind I was sharing. My mind didn't need an office.
Yeah.
It didn't need this, it didn't need that. I didn't need workers. So if we can train people to learn, and then if you decide to go on to have your brand like I did, you already have a lot of knowledge. And some people never even own a brand. I have a colleague who, she's like the VP of, technical design. Not even product, just for a big company.
Wow.
And she's probably making 6-7 figures in the US.
Wow.
So there's so many ways. So again, we already have wonderful things in the country. I love this country so much. And I think it's just that skill. And when we train people, also they're able to help brands in Nigeria get, standards to a globally accepted, standard. So that is my dream for Nigeria. Look at what you have done. You're able to make your path in that fashion space. And you're doing well. So I want more people like you. How about that?
Thank you so much for that compliment, ma'am. Yeah. Okay, so while you were speaking, something came to my heart also about the fact that knowledge nowadays in Nigeria seems to be, I feel that's, how do I put it, that's a space that there are a lot of people, okay, for example, we have a lot of fashion schools. I think that's where I'm going.
Okay.
We have a lot of fashion schools. However, the challenge is that we just have a one-way street kind of thing. They're either teaching you pattern making or how to sew, like garment construction, so the diversification of the roles or the different skill sets that exist within the industry, it's still somehow I know Obsidian Advisory is really trying because they've started this program called the Bridge Program Africa, where they bring on other focus areas apart from pattern making. So there's apparel production management, and I'm one of the I'm the facilitator on that particular one. So that people can see that, just as you said, there are other skill sets that you can have and other areas within the industry where you can make money. And I think for me, that's the challenge that I see being in this space locally. And I see that we don't have enough of such institutions. And then another thing is, for people who have even taken it upon themselves to learn, my last guest was someone, she's in the product development space, and she does it digitally. And she had to take it on herself to learn. She went to school for it, but then a lot of self-taught things happening. And those things are not cheap. It's subscription based and all that. And for people who have a flair for such things, like technically inclined to handle digital product creation and all that, they may not have access to funds to go to school to learn such things or, to train themselves. And then even for someone like her, getting a job also is still a bit difficult. Because many fashion business owners seem to think they don't need. So there is also that challenge, and that's what I want us to, sort of wrap up on. So how do we enlighten fashion business owners to see that things can be done differently apart from the traditional way of doing things? It's good. It's not that it's broken. It doesn't mean that, okay, we are saying the traditional way of doing things is wrong, but there are better, smarter ways of doing things. And because it's also a growing industry, to prepare us for, with all this whole thing going on with the tariff thing with China and what's going, to position Nigeria to be that manufacturing hub that you spoke about, it's important that we, I don't know how to say it, it's important that we do better when it comes to the standards that are required now in the industry. Digital products development, a whole lot of things, technology, the use of technology, quality control, a whole lot.
Yes.
And it starts with people just really buying into it that, okay, this is a future of fashion.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think I've said a lot, but I just wanted to, touch on that.
Again, like you said, it's more educating people, having a podcast like yours. I know that there were brands in Nigeria I had to help when they got international orders, because prior to me helping, everything was returned.
Wow.
I tell you, even when I say this joke of when I work with, the big companies, it's almost like you're about to give them your kidney. They require everything. And you can't blame them. Nobody wants to receive tens of thousands of products that are, faulty, So I know that there are brands who want this. If you want to scale, if you want to grow, if you want to have your products in the foreign market, you need this. I will repeat it again. A fashion designer and a technical person, two different things. Two different things. And you do not have to be both. I happen to be both because, But most people I know, a fashion designer, if you look at a big company, everything is so precise that if you work with like an Adidas, which, I have in Massachusetts, and I meet people, one person, all they do is color. They're colorists. One person, the designer, you come up with a creative, vision for that collection. The technical designer gets it from design to how do we produce it so it fits, it works, and it's cost effective. So if you want to scale, if you want to be that company, you have to do that. So I think, and I know a lot of brands are getting international attention. And I know also that for a long time, people try to come into the African market, but they will get stuff and the fashion business is not forgiving. Once you send them the faulty product, That's
That's
it.
it.
There are like 1,000,001 people who are ready. So again, it's for our good to have these processes in place. I mentioned quality control and assurance. I tell my students, you do not control at the end alone. That's quality control, which is when,
It has been
after everything has, and by the way, if you're supplying a retail chain, it's 80% being done. They won't even come at the end. But while we're producing, we do quality checks or what we call quality assurance. You have like steps within production that check that, everything. Because imagine if you're I've made millions of pieces for clients. My stuff for HS, we had over 30,000 pieces.
Wow.
So if something is wrong at the beginning, it affects everything. So you put checks. Of course, your check pack is a check.
Yeah.
Then I tell people, and even some checks, for me, it just came in organically, just, for me working in the industry, knowing that, okay, I might not be at the factory, but before you send me a sample, I'm going to look at you can't send me something without me seeing pictures, videos, and you kind of measuring, and I check. So I've put a lot of things in. So again, to wrap it up, Morenike, because I love to talk when it comes to fashion. I can be here all day.
I can feel the passion.
Yeah, it is to our advantage to have people who know this, and that's all they concentrate on. Yeah, because you need it in your business if you want to scale. Yes. If you want to have, I tell people, our best-selling dress, we've sold thousands of it. It's called the Abby dress. My tech pack, I can send it to Japan. I can send it to China, Turkey. It will come back the same every time. Why wouldn't you want that?
It saves you a lot of headache.
It does.
I don't know why people
it makes your process,
faster.
faster. You save time, energy. And let me tell you, Morenike, you'll be surprised that even in the US,
people still don't know that.
Oh, people. I had a client where I'm like, so when you want to make, clothes with your factory, you send in samples every time.
Every time.
You need a tech pack. So I had to help them. I had to do tech packs for hundreds of styles.
Businesses. Okay.
No, styles.
Oh, wow.
They're a big company. They've been in
a big company.
In business since, it's still a small, medium business, but they've been in business since the 70s, and they have the licensing rights to one of the greatest rock groups in America.
Wow.
The Grateful Dead. So and when I met them, I'm like, whoa, they had a warehouse full of samples, because to make something, they will have to send it. And I'm like, no.
My goodness.
So, you'll be surprised that in Nigeria, we're not doing too bad though. But definitely, if you want to scale, if you want to go to a trade show and you don't have all of this down, oh my goodness. Because believe me, I had it down and I still would wake up in the middle of the night, stressed. So it's for to our advantage to have your process in place.
Thank you so much. I feel like I'm going to monetize this particular. Oh my goodness, you shared so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, so for, like I said earlier, on a lighter note, I'm just going to ask this question. If a garment could talk, with all that you shared, and all that, what would a garment say?
So, because I'm a creative person and a technical person, it's going to be two-pronged, right? So if a garment could talk as a creative person, my garment would say, I'm a lot of things. Don't put me in a box. Don't think because I'm African, it has to be like a Lion King costume. And which was why I started ChicNiCity. I want you to see me and you're able to know to some extent who I am. Because, 90% of the impression people have about you is before you talk. Yeah. And that was what I wanted ChicNiCity to say. I'm proud of who I am, but please, I'm a Black woman. I'm dynamic. I do a lot of things and I'm proud of who I am. So my garment will say, don't put me in a box. I'm a lot of things and I wear it in my fashion, right? As a technical person, my garment would say, my garment will say, it's hard work, But if you have your process, there will be progress. Take time to figure out how I work, how, when you see me in stores, everything is consistent. So my garment would say, put in that work so your garments are coming out good. Put in the work so as we speak about sustainability, that garment is something that can be worn for years. And your clientele, they're happy with what they have.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's such a pleasure having you on this particular episode. Yeah. And so with that, we've come to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the conversation today, please like, comment, drop your comments in the comment section, and also subscribe to my channel for more insightful and meaningful conversations about the fashion and the garment industry. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye for now.